It was supposed to be a peaceful Sunday morning. Families gathered. Children sat beside their parents. Soft voices filled the room as prayers began. But in just a few seconds, everything changed. A loud crash shattered the silence. A pickup truck tore through the church building. At first, people thought it was an accident. But then, the driver stepped out, and he started shooting. Within minutes, a place meant for faith, safety, and community turned into a scene of chaos, fire, and unimaginable violence. For innocent people would lose their lives. 9 others would be injured, and the man responsible would leave behind a trail of questions that investigators are still trying to fully understand. This is the story of the Grand Blanc church attack. Grand Blanc Township, Michigan, is the kind of place where people feel safe. It's quiet, suburban, familiar. The local church wasn't just a building, it was a community. A place where people gathered every week, shared meals, supported each other, and built strong connections. On the morning of September 28, 2025, nothing seemed unusual. Sunday's service had begun like any other. Hundreds of people were inside. No one had any idea that someone had already decided what was about to happen. The man responsible was 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford. He lived nearby, in Burton, Michigan. On the surface, Sanford wasn't someone who stood out in a crowd. But behind closed doors, investigators would later discover a much darker picture. He was a former U.S. Marine and had served in Iraq. At some point after returning to civilian life, something changed. Reports suggested he developed strong anti-religious views, specifically targeting the Mormon faith. Investigators would later believe this attack was not random. It was planned, and it was personal. This wasn't a sudden act of rage. Sanford came prepared. He had multiple weapons, including an assault-style rifle. Inside his pickup truck, investigators would later find improvised explosive devices, IEDs, that, thankfully, never detonated. There were also signs that he brought materials to start a fire. This wasn't just an attack. It was designed to cause as much damage, fear, and confusion as possible. At approximately 10:25 a.m., everything changed. Without warning, Sanford drove his pickup truck straight into the church. The crash was loud and violent. Parts of the building were damaged instantly. Inside, people were stunned. Some thought it was an accident. Others rushed toward the scene, trying to help. But within moments, the situation turned deadly. Sanford stepped out of the vehicle, holding a firearm, and he began shooting. Panic spread instantly. People screamed. Some tried to run. Others froze. A few attempted to help the injured, even as gunfire echoed around them. Sanford continued firing, targeting people in and around the building. Then, as if the situation wasn't already horrifying enough, a fire started. Flames began to spread. Smoke quickly filled parts of the church. Now, survivors weren't just trying to escape bullets, they were also trying to escape the fire. 911 calls flooded in within seconds. Dispatchers received multiple reports at once. Shots fired, a vehicle crash, people injured, a fire breaking out. Police responded almost immediately. Within minutes, some reports say less than 4 officers arrived at the scene. By this time, Sanford had moved outside toward the parking lot. He was still armed, still dangerous. Officers confronted him, and within moments, they made the decision to use deadly force. Sanford was shot and killed at the scene. The entire attack, from the crash to the end, lasted only a few minutes. But the damage had already been done. For innocent people lost their lives that day. Some were killed by gunfire. Others succumbed to smoke inhalation as the fire spread. 9 more people were injured, some seriously. Families were shattered. A community was left in shock. For those who survived, the memories of that morning would never fully fade. Firefighters worked quickly to control the blaze. Parts of the church suffered severe damage. Some sections were destroyed. The building that once symbolized peace now stood as a reminder of tragedy. Outside, emergency crews treated the injured. Ambulances rushed victims to nearby hospitals. Loved ones gathered, desperate for information. Confusion, fear, and grief filled the air. In the hours that followed, a large-scale investigation began. Multiple agencies got involved, including federal authorities. Over 100 investigators worked on the case. They examined everything. Sanford's vehicle was searched. Inside, they found the improvised explosive devices. If those had gone off, the outcome could have been even worse. Investigators also recovered weapons and analyzed how the fire started. At the same time, They began looking into Sanford's background. They searched his home. They reviewed his digital activity. They interviewed people who knew him. The evidence painted a clear picture. This was a premeditated attack. Sanford had planned it in advance. He had chosen the location. He had prepared weapons. He had even brought materials to start a fire. Investigators also found indications that his motive was rooted in anti-religious beliefs. There was no evidence of accomplices. He acted alone, but his actions were calculated, deliberate, and devastating. In the days that followed, the community came together. Vigils were held. Candles were lit. People prayed, not just for the victims, but for healing. The attack shook more than just one town. It raised broader concerns about safety in places of worship. For many, the question remained, how could something like this happen here? Because Sanford was killed at the scene, there was no trial, no courtroom, no testimony, no formal sentencing. The case was closed as a criminal investigation. But in many ways, it never truly ended. The victims' families were left to grieve. Survivors were left to cope with trauma. And a community was left trying to rebuild. Investigators concluded that the attack was intentional, targeted, and carefully planned. It was an act of violence driven by ideology and preparation. And while the attacker is gone, the impact of what he did remains. This case is a reminder of how quickly ordinary moments can turn into unimaginable tragedies. What do you think about this case? Do you believe more could have been done to prevent it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If you found this documentary informative, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more true crime stories like this. And if you think this story should be seen by more people, share it with others. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.